Welcome to a mouth-watering journey of pancakes from around the world. It's like soft and fluffy and flavorful. The sauce is on top. Wow, so good. So in today's video, we're gonna go on a culinary adventure and indulge in the diverse world of pancakes, from Japan to Austria to the US. And in each of these recipes, I'm gonna share with you how we're gonna replace the traditional egg that are in these recipes to make a plant-based version of the pancakes. So grab your skillet and let's get flipping. For the first recipe, we're gonna be making one of my favorite Japanese dishes, okonomiyaki, a delicious savory pancake. So first things first, we're gonna make a kombu broth. I've got 8 grams of kombu here, which is just dried kelp, and we're gonna add this to a saucepan along with 3/4 of a cup of water. Then cover it completely and let it gently simmer for about 10 minutes just to infuse the water with all that umami goodness. But while the broth is still cooking, we can start to slice up some king trumpet mushrooms and then grill them until they're golden. These mushrooms are gonna add an amazing meaty texture to our okonomiyaki. So once that's cooked, we can set it aside, and then next we're gonna mash a 150-gram block of silken tofu in a bowl. So it's silken tofu for this particular recipe that's acting as a substitute for egg. It's also gonna contribute to this like light, moist, and fluffy texture in the pancake. Optionally, you could also just use an immersion blender to puree it, and that's gonna elevate the texture of the pancakes even more. So once it's all pureed, we can then add in 1/4 cup of flour, a teaspoon of baking powder, and the cooled kombu broth. Then you can mix it all together. Next, we're gonna add some veggies to the mix. We'll add some shredded green cabbage, sliced green onion, and the grilled mushrooms, and then we're gonna stir everything together one more time until it's all coated in the batter. And now it's time to cook our okonomiyaki. So we're gonna add some oil to a pan, and then we can add 1 cup of the mixture to the pan. You're gonna wanna use the back of your spatula to pat the mixture into a thin, round shape. And then cover the pan with a lid and let it cook for about 4 to 5 minutes until it's golden on the bottom. Then you can gently give it a flip and cook it on the other side. And then comes the best part, adding all of the delicious toppings. So for me, there are 2 must-haves, a drizzle of vegan okonomiyaki sauce and vegan mayo. And then optionally, if you wanna make things fancy, you can add some sliced nori sheets, some furikake seasoning, which is just a delicious mixture of seaweed, sesame seeds, and other seasonings. You can add some pickled ginger if you're feeling adventurous, and maybe even some green onions. There are so many layers of flavor to this recipe, and it's one of my absolute favorites. Oh my God, so good though. All right, next we're making Kaiserschmarrn, a traditional Austrian dish that's sure to impress. Kaiserschmarrn.
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 Yes, perfect.
So this is Sadia. She's one of our teammates, and she's originally from
Slovenia.
But she's lived in
Austria.
So that's how she learned to make this dish, and you speak
German.
Which is how you can pronounce
Kaiserschmarrn.
So she's the one who actually created this recipe and taught me how to make it. So even though I can't pronounce Kaiserschmarrn correctly, I now know how to make it. So let's make it. So we're gonna start first with soaking 1/4 cup of raisins in 1/4 cup of apple juice, and then just set this aside for about 10 minutes. Meanwhile, we're gonna drain 3/4 of a cup of aquafaba from a jar or can of chickpeas into a bowl. If you need some recipe ideas on what to do with these chickpeas, might I invite you to make one of our hummus recipes or curry recipes? I'll link them for you in the description box below. To the aquafaba, we're then gonna add in 1 teaspoon of cream of tartar, and then we can start to whip it up. Now this is the second way that we can replace eggs in our pancake recipes. The aquafaba here kind of acts like a vegan alternative to egg whites, kind of produces this fluffy, airy texture in our pancakes. And then the cream of tartar, that's just helping to stabilize the whip so it doesn't deflate. So once you're able to form stiff peaks, you can set this aside. Returning to our raisins, we're gonna drain the apple juice into a saucepan, and then we can also add in 2 cups of frozen cherries, 1/4 cup of water, some optional sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and an optional pinch of ground cloves. Then we're gonna bring this all to a simmer and then just cook it until it's thawed and heated through. I also decided to add a little bit of fresh strawberries at the end because I had it in the fridge and I felt like the compote could use just a little splash of color. Now, in another large bowl, we're gonna sift together 2 cups of flour, 1/4 cup of sugar, and 1/2 teaspoon each of baking powder and salt. We'll mix this together super well and then add in 1.5 cups of plant milk, 1/4 cup of carbonated water, which adds air bubbles and lightness to the batter, making the pancakes fluffier. And then we're also gonna add in 2 tablespoons of melted vegan butter, and finally a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And give it all a stir until it's just combined, and then you can add in the whipped aquafaba and the raisins and gently fold it through the batter. Just be careful not to overmix here because we don't want the whip to deflate. Oh my gosh, look at how fluffy this is. Now let's go cook it. So we're gonna melt a little bit of butter in a pan on medium-high heat and pour about half of the mixture into the pan or until it's about 1 centimeter thick. And then we're gonna cook this for about 5 minutes or until the bottom is golden. Then we can give it a flip. Confidence. Not bad. So now that we've given this a flip, we're gonna let it rest for just like a minute or 2, and then we're gonna start to rip into it. Now here comes the fun part. Using a couple of spatulas, we're going to start to imperfectly break the pancake into bite-sized pieces. Start to toss the pieces so that it also cooks on the sides and so that it firms up a little bit more. When it's cooked to your liking, you can transfer it to a plate and then just repeat this whole process with the remaining batter. When the warm pancake is plated up, you can sprinkle over some powdered sugar and serve it with the fruit compote, or if you couldn't be bothered with the fruit compote, you could serve it with applesauce, which is traditionally served with this dish. The small pancake pieces are just such a unique feature to Kaiserschmarrn, which makes it also really easy to share with your friends and family. Cheers. Last but not least, we're gonna be making some ultra fluffy American style pancakes. I feel like everyone should have a go-to classic fluffy pancake recipe, and in my opinion, these are them. They come together with just 7 ingredients, and then it's up to you to add any toppings that you love. So first we're gonna start by sifting together about 1.5 cups of flour and a tablespoon of baking powder. I would definitely sift your flour here if you can. It not only helps to remove lumps, but it also aerates the flour, which means that we're gonna have pancakes that are more fluffy. Then we can add 2 tablespoons of sugar and 1/4 teaspoon of salt to the bowl as well, and then mix everything together. Then we can add in our wet ingredients, 1 1/3 cup of soy or pea milk, a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar or regular white vinegar, and lastly 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Then we can mix everything together until it's just combined, but don't worry if there are a few lumps, that's totally okay. It's the combination of soy milk and vinegar in this recipe that serves as the egg. The vinegar helps to kind of thicken the soy milk. If you remember, we talked about this previously in one of our cake videos. And essentially because the soy milk has protein in it naturally, that helps to kind of provide like some structure and support, much like eggs do. So now we're gonna let this sit for about 3 minutes, which is also gonna activate the baking powder, which is gonna create that fluffy texture that we all love. So to cook up our pancakes, we're gonna first heat up some oil in a non-stick crepe pan, and when it's hot, we'll pour 1/4 cup of the pancake batter onto the skillet. So traditional pancake batter is a bit thinner than this, but I like it when it's thick because that allows me to kind of spread it out to the diameter I want my pancakes to be. But if you do prefer a thinner consistency, just add a small splash more plant milk. We'll cook this for 1 to 2 minutes or until the top is bubbly and the bottom is golden, and then give it a flip and cook it on the other side until it's golden too. Once the pancakes are ready, you can serve them with your favorite toppings. Today we're just gonna be using some fresh mixed berries, and of course you're always gonna wanna add some maple syrup. These pillowy, soft, and airy pancakes are easy to make, and they're so delicious, you're not even gonna miss out on the eggs. This is our first time doing a meals from around the world theme, but I'd love to personally explore it some more. So if there's certain recipes that you'd love for us to make, maybe veganize, share those in the comments below. And just as a reminder, in the description box is where you're gonna find the full breakdown to all the recipes we shared today. But thanks so much for cooking with me today. Really appreciate it. Pickle Limes signing off, and I'll see you in the next video. Kaiserschmarrn. So bad. We're gonna go on a journey starting in Japan, heading our way over to Austria and ending. It's a bloody mess. So sifting helps us to not only okay. So like, look at how fluffy this is. You would never think that there's no eggs in here, right? Used to. Show us how it's done. You got it. You got it. Confidence.
I guess who invented the recipe didn't really nail the flip, so...
That's a good point. So it doesn't even matter if you nail the flip properly. You're gonna destroy it anyway.